Well, hello, everyone. So excited for this next panel. My name is Whitley Porter, and I'm going to be moderating No Longer the Only, where we are featuring some amazing and powerful women who are really leading with authenticity and courage while elevating others, which is just it's so exciting. I literally took the time before getting ready for this amazing panel to look into who they are, and I want to share. So please, ladies, I know for you, it's probably a little awkward and embarrassing to hear someone tell of all the amazing things that you've been doing, but I'm going to have to do it because I need everyone to understand what you have been able to accomplish before we get into questions. So I'm going to start with Kristen, who is the CEO at GG, the largest search and discovery platform for Discord. She is a board member at Partners in School Innovation, advisor at Blue Note Therapeutics, angel investor, and mentor at First Round Capital. Most recently, she was the director of product management at SoundCloud, leading the creator to fan team. Prior to SoundCloud, she worked in product management roles at Pinterest, Twitch, and at LinkedIn. She is an expert in product leadership, product management, working in tech, mentorship, building companies and communities, and so much more. Thank you so much, Kristen, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay! We're excited for you. Can't wait to ask you some questions. The next one I want to introduce is Daniela Corrente. She's the CEO and co-founder of Real, a platform for debt-free shopping. They make it simple to pay for what you want in installment savings. She is internationally known, being featured by top publications and platforms such as Forbes magazine and NPR. She's an experienced associate creative director that led digital solutions for a wide variety of national and international brands, including retail and beauty giants, TJ Maxx and Olay. She's dedicated to use technology to empower the young generation to make informed financial decisions. Welcome, Daniela.
Thank you so much for having me here. Excited to hear your questions and share the panel with these amazing women.
Awesome. Love your glasses, by the way. All right, the next woman I want to introduce is Melanie Elturk, the CEO and co-founder of Haute Hijab, the leading U.S. hijab brand and community that empowers Muslim women through leadership and community engagement. A former civil rights attorney, Melanie brings her passion for social justice to the fashion industry as she sets out to normalize hijab in the mainstream and build the first global hijab brand. She's a regular contributor on Elle.com and has been featured in the New York Times, Glamour, InStyle, Vogue Arabia, NBC Today, US Today, Pop Sugar, and many others, to name a few. Thank you so much for joining us, Melanie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And last but not least, I want to introduce Alexandra Fine. She's the CEO and co-founder of Dame Products and recently crowned as Forbes 30 Under 30 under 30. Unlike traditional sex toy companies, Dame is made for women by women, working to end the pleasure gap. Since her brand's first crowdfunding campaigns in 2014 and 2016, her products broke records, raising a total of $970,000, becoming the most successful sex toy crowdfunding campaigns in history. Recently, Dame Products closed a $4 million seed round and has been featured by Vogue, Refinery 29, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, The Today Show, Business Insider, Glamour, Vice, just to name a few. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alexandra.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, I want to give you you ladies, an opportunity to share a little bit about your journey that led you to your current role, because I think sometimes we will hear these really impressive and amazing resumes and bios, but we don't really know what it took for you to get there. So I want to start with Kristen, and you can go ahead and just kind of give us a little insight on your journey and what led you to where you are now.
Sure. I will try not to take up too much time, but also show all of the ups and downs, because I have heard feedback. Sometimes you look at someone's LinkedIn or resume and you just kind of see that highlight reel. And so I graduated. I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do. So I thought consulting would be something good, right? Like, let me just check different things out. But I also regretted not studying abroad. So I decided to move to India and lived in Mumbai working for Mahindra, working on an internal operations and strategy role. I came back to the Bay Area. It was 2012, big financial crisis. crisis. I was unemployed for a year. I moved back with my parents, could not, you don't really see this on my LinkedIn profile, but I was unemployed for a year, could not find a job, just volunteered, kept applying. And almost a year later, a friend referred me to Franklin Templeton Investments in their rotational program. I said, hey, that's perfect. I don't know exactly what I wanted to do. I can try out, working with a couple of different groups. Ended up in a economic research group working for their kind of hedge fund division, and got to learn a lot about economic research, meet with people from the central bank, ministers of finance, realized that I didn't really love that. And I wanted to make the transition to tech. And I was kind of dragging my feet. I luckily had a friend who said, you can learn on the job. Let's just send in your resume. So he sent in my resume to LinkedIn, and I got the job. He sent in my resume for a research analyst position that was completely different from what I was doing. And I was just lucky enough to have a recruiter call me back and say, hey, Kristen, this probably doesn't make sense. You don't have any survey or market research experience, but we have this team called the Insights team, and we hire a lot of people from consulting and finance. Like, why don't you check it out? And I interviewed with them. I somehow convinced them to hire me, even though I didn't know SQL. I just emphasized that I could figure it out on the job and learn it really fast. And that kind of kicked off my journey into tech. At LinkedIn, I worked on data analytics, and then I decided I wanted to make the switch to product management, which was really, really difficult. I will say transparently, a ton of people, probably the majority of people, were like, you will never be able to do it. You didn't study computer science. Good luck, and weren't really great. But there were a few people out there who believed in me, and I decided to give myself 6 months to a year to make the transition. Just spent tons of time networking, talking to people, getting completely destroyed in interviews. But I got better and better, and then that kind of kicked off my product management journey to Twitch, and then to Pinterest, and then to SoundCloud, and then to most recently Top GG, where we are working on indexing the metaverse. And right now we do search and discovery for Discord bots and servers, but we're expanding into search and discovery for DAOs and Web3 soon and other games. So I will stop there because I want to hear the stories from all these other wonderful women, but I wanted to share a few of the ups and downs because you don't see those on my LinkedIn profile or resume.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I do think that it's probably so inspirational, especially that period and phase of time, the unemployment, the awkward phase of what am I going to do next? And kudos to you for being so flexible on your journey, because it's probably really been an amazing opportunity for you to try your hand at things that you probably never knew that you'd be great at. So you go, Kristen. All right. Well, next, Daniela, would you like to share a little bit about your journey and process?
Yeah, I actually, my fascination for financial psychology, which is what we do with Real, it all started because I had a terrible experience with a credit card. Originally from South America, I'm from Venezuela, so yes, I have an accent. And I moved to the States for college, got my first credit card, and I loved it. I thought I was $2,000 richer, right? I was swiping it and having my best life. And then I started getting the statements, and I realized that I had a ridiculously high APR, and I had no idea what that meant. And I started asking around and realized that not a lot of people really understand that unless you have a financial background. And it's something that became a big fascination for me on how we make so many decisions from a financial standpoint, from an emotional place, even though we all like to think that we're rational beings. When it comes to money, most of the decisions are emotional. And we also associate money as something stressful and scary, right? Versus shopping is so fun and so relaxing and so therapeutic. Again, it's all mental. And went ahead, I did a career in advertising. Actually, my first life professionally was as an industrial designer. I worked as an industrial designer for a couple of years, realized that it was fantastic but really slow, and I'm way too hyper to be waiting for approval for a package for 6 months. And then moved into advertising, moved to New York, and worked in the agency world for many years. And a couple of years back, I saw the rise of buy now pay later and which is more that, and then savings platforms that are super numbers driven. So it's like red and yellow numbers that are not relatable, and nobody was really having that connection between commerce and savings. And I just jumped in. I had to go to South by Southwest for work, and I I said, you know what? I have this idea. I'm going to put a website, and on my free time on South by Southwest, I'm going to just walk around and give these business cards to people and just hear feedback. And I did that with who is now my co-founder. And it was great. We got a lot of really good feedback. We actually got our first investor meeting, which obviously didn't end up in investment because we had no idea what we were doing back then. And and that's how we really decided to go full on into building a platform where we make it very simple for people to set money aside towards purchases. And the whole point is that you have the option to see that you can achieve your goals without having to go into debt.
Wow. So impressive. Thank you so much for sharing that journey. And I am going to tell all my friends about it because, girlfriend, they have issues, okay, with saving. I said, I'm signing myself up. So thank you for making it easier for us millennial women. Okay, well, moving right along, Melanie.
Hi, it's so great to hear you guys' stories. So I'm originally from Detroit. As you mentioned, I'm a former attorney, really focused on civil rights. It was my first love and first passion, and something I actually still really miss today. I really, really miss my legal career. So I started this hijab company really as a woman who started wearing hijab at the age of 13. I was in 9th grade, and I knew what it was like to, enter school being one of the only women wearing hijab, and kind of the anticipation and almost even fear that can come with that, living in today's society and being very visibly Muslim. And so I wanted to make sure that the women had a community that they could go to feel connected and feel supported and loved by other women who are going through what they were going through, but then at the same time supporting them with really incredible products, because it was very hard to find really beautiful, high quality hijabs when I was in high school. I used to go to Salvation Army, find scarves and makeshift them into hijabs, or you'd have to go to like Macy's and buy like a pashmina, which didn't work. Or you'd go overseas to wherever your parents are from if you're a child of immigrants and go buy them off the street, super cheap. Again, not a great experience. So I started this brand really to provide women with that community, but then also a really, really great product that makes you feel beautiful and confident and just so excited to wear hijab. And that's what I always wanted for myself. So I built it for the whole world. I started the company with my former husband back in 2010. I was still working as an attorney, and I was just, doing that double life grind of a lawyer by day, entrepreneur by night. We did that for about 6 years, and then finally took the plunge once we realized that, our revenue was at a place where it could actually support both of us. We were living in Dubai at the time, both quit our jobs, 2016, moved to New York City, started building the brand full time, building out a team, fundraising, all that fun and not so fun stuff. And so, yeah, that's kind of the backstory of how I got to where I am.
Oh, man. Well, kudos to you. And I was looking at some of the beautiful pieces that you have with these hijabs and just how fashionable you are. I was like, I need to get some fashion tips from her. The shoes, the matching, it's amazing. So great. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. Next up, we have Alexandra.
Hi. So how I got to where I am today, I went to college at Washington, St. Louis, and I was an art school dropout. I ended up majoring in psychology with a minor in fine arts, a minor in women gender studies, and a minor in business. And I remember my mom was like, those things don't go together. Like, what are you doing? And then I started a sex toy company where they all went together. So definitely follow your passions. I got my master's in clinical psychology. I thought I really wanted to be a sex therapist. And I too found myself just very impatient. I feel like somebody else mentioned impatience. To become a therapist. And then I realized being an impatient person probably isn't a great trait for a therapist. And that being an entrepreneur might be better for me. So I ended up working in consumer goods. And while I was there selling all natural shampoo, I started thinking about the sexual wellness space and feeling very much like there weren't products that were designed by women for women who were speaking to me in a way that resonated with my experience with using these products. And yeah, so I started kind of fooling around and making vibrators at home as one does. And I actually got let go from that position, which I also think is, it's always good to, the highs and lows. It really is nice to just remind ourselves, like, I got let go. And that was how I took my full plunge into like really just being in this business full time. I launched an Indiegogo campaign for our first product in October of 2014, and we raised about $575,000 in 45 days. And that was really how we got started. And now we are like a 30-person team doing millions every year, and close to profitable, sometimes profitable. And I think the last thing I do want to mention too about my journey is just, the immense privilege that I've been afforded in life that also really helped me get started at 26 without having any college debt, and being able to get this business off the ground. I think there was a lot of hard work, a lot of, a lot of biases working against me, and then some biases working for me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So impressive. And I just want to just hand and hat down to you for the crowdfunding campaigns. I've done one. And I mean, getting people to donate $10, $20, it's like, oh my gosh, pulling teeth. So to be able to do your first one and receive that kind of funding, wow.
It was incredibly validating. Yeah. You're starting something and you think, oh, there's a need for this in the world. People are going to, have that same feeling experience that I had. And like, that's why I want to create this thing, which I feel like resonated with some of the other stories I just heard. But there was nothing like people showing up and putting some money down to be like, yeah, that toy makes sense for me. I want that. I cried a few times. I did cry.
Good cry.
Good cries. Yeah.
Love a good cry. Well, let's kind of jump into some of these questions. I'm going to leave it to you ladies to answer as you see fit. But first question for you is, has there been a time where you felt like you were the only in a room? And so this could include you being the only woman, you being the only one that has unique opinion, going into a career or field that people have said, are we sure about this? So I don't know. I'll leave it up to anyone to kind of step in and jump in. I'm sure all of you have had an experience or two.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in and kind of take a lens on it from working in gaming at Twitch, and then also now kind of coming back into the gaming adjacent space with Top GG and entering into the Web3 blockchain crypto space. At Twitch, we had kind of 3 different groups, and I remember I was in the developer experience group, and I was the only female leader at the time in the room many oftentimes. And I think even today on calls, sometimes I'll go with, a male colleague and they'll be like, wait, whoa, Kristen, there's a lot of dudes here. I'm the only female. And so it's, I think it's important to recognize that. And then also, I think my opinion has changed, or maybe that my experience has changed in it as I've kind of accelerated in my career. But in the beginning, it was really hard at Twitch. Like one meeting I went to, I was late, and then my male colleague cracked a joke. Oh, were you late because you were shopping for bikinis? And I froze. Like I was just shocked. Like, honestly, I wish, thinking back later, I'm like, oh, I could have cracked like a joke or something. But in the moment, it's really, really hard. And so I kind of just said, I'm going to ignore it and not let it bother me and keep going. But I think again and again, sometimes I've talked to a lot of other women in the space. It can be really grating. And so I think it's so important to find a support network, or also rely on allies. I think as I spent more time at Twitch, I found, a couple allies, oftentimes men, because I was the only woman who would kind of speak up for me, or, if I wasn't getting recognition for idea, be like, hey, Kristen's working on that, or Kristen actually broke that up. So I think that's super, super important. Fast forward to today, I have become a lot bolder. I think it just took me some time to make that confidence, but I've noticed that sometimes there's kind of investment groups or deals where multiple people will band together and buy an NFT or form something. And I've kind of called out some of my friends and said, hey, are there any women in there? Can I join, or can you take a look at that? And so I think part of my take on it has just been, if I'm the only one, I have to speak up. I have to say something. Like I've called out saying, hey, let's use more inclusive language. Let's not use, hey guys, or, when I did speaker panels at Twitch, I made sure one event I did had a lot of women and then also, you know, men of color. And someone made a comment and said, "Oh, Kristen, did you stack that panel with females?" And I was like, is there a problem that it's not all men? Every single one is all men. But I think it's just, I guess I share these examples to let you know that even if you're the only one, there are a lot of other women who have been in that situation. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you. That really resonates. Really resonates. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, there is no shame on making your own space, and I love that you shared those stories, right? Of really asking like, hey, there are no women in the panel, because a lot of times it's very deaf how they're talking about diversity, and it's all like certain group of men that are just sitting there, and it's like, hello, no. So I've also recently, one of the biggest panels that I was on, same thing. I saw the panel, saw who was going to be there, and I'm like, this makes absolutely no sense. So I just reached out to the organizer, and I'm like, great event, this panel on Friday, you don't have any females. This is why I should be the female representing there. Let me know. Thank you. And I was on that panel, and it has opened a lot of doors for partnerships for us. I could have very much just criticized it and stay silent, but I'm like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm gonna call it out, and the worst thing that can happen is that they don't put me in the panel. I wasn't on the panel in the first place, so it's fine. So I'm on financial technology. Obviously, there are not many female, let alone Latinas. So I'm usually the only one on the room or in the room with this background. And you know what? I just, as much as I can help others, I help others, but I'm also very focused. One thing that my parents taught me when I was little, and I apply it all the time as an entrepreneur and as a female entrepreneur, is that you gotta focus on what you have and not on what you lack. And I always, work, position my story. I'm there, I should be there, I need to be there, I'm doing the same work, better work, or as amazing work as everybody else that is into the room. So I really don't get intimidated. The only times that I get intimidated sometimes, and this is interesting because you mentioned it with the bikini example, and now I don't pay attention to anymore, was with the accent. Because sometimes people can be like, oh, let me teach you how to say it. No, thank you. Thank you very much. I know how to say it. How many languages do you speak? Because I speak 3. So back up. So I used to not say anything, but now I just, I'm smiling. I'm like, oh, how many languages do you speak? Oh, 1? Okay. Right? So you just have to find your way and understand which one are your boundaries and how to open space for yourself. And that's it.
So, I mean, I've had some similar experiences, or I can touch on some of this. I do think there's nothing quite like being a woman in the gaming industry, for sure. But, I remember when we first started out, or even still today, I'll tell people what I do and explain some of our products. And, oftentimes I'm a young woman talking to a room full of men about sex. And that makes people uncomfortable, for sure. Which I almost prefer people be uncomfortable than be just totally just be like, boundaries, who cares about those? Or I've definitely had men tell me like, oh, my wife doesn't need that product, kind of stuff. It's like, but she really needs it, like. So I think, since most investors are men, them not being able to understand the real need for my product has certainly been challenging. But, I'm at a point in the business where that obstacle for me has forced me to be really smart about how we spend our money. We've been able to grow in a capitally efficient way. And now I can kind of just laugh at men who say that to me, because a lot of other investors want to invest in us. So that feels really good to experience that change. And the other thing that came up for me was being invited to panels, though, because I'm a woman, and them telling me that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was invited to a space. They were like, oh, we are looking to have more women in the space. Like, it's an entrepreneurial group. Do you want to come? And in my head, I'm just like, well, what about the part where like my business is crushing it? Like, what about me makes, as an entrepreneur, makes you want to invite me to this space? And that, I think, is a feeling that a lot of people who are minorities in so many different ways feel, which is like, I'm excited to be invited to the space. I realize that the only way I can change the space is by showing up. But like, I feel tokenized and not necessarily valued or seen for the work that I've actually done. And it makes me just not want to go. And sometimes I just decide I'm not going to go. I don't need to change every space, like I don't have to do that. And if I want to show up and change it, or want to show up and educate or explain why I'm both on, like in this particular instance too, or I had this conversation, of course, with my dad, and he was just like, didn't really understand why I was offended, by the experience. He's like, they're inviting you. And I'm like, yes, but they're making me feel second class the whole time that they're inviting me. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, no, I can definitely resonate. I've definitely been asked intentionally, being a woman of color, minority woman, to come in and step in. And it does feel sometimes like a slight. And I definitely love how I think all of you, it sounds like the theme here is that there is a speaking up, there's a boldness, there's a sense of courage that comes with being in the spaces that you're in and figuring out your voice and what rings true to you. So again, you ladies are rocking it. Before we move on to the next question, did you want to add anything, Melanie?
No, I think you guys all covered it. The only thing that came to mind for me, I mean, being a woman who in hijab, I'm like the only hijab wearing woman everywhere and anywhere I go, which I've been used to since I was 13. But I was reminded of the Maya Angelou quote of "You belong nowhere, you belong everywhere, you belong nowhere at all." It's like, that's just life. And the sooner you can get used to that and get right with that, the more successful you'll be. Because if you're constantly seeking that validation and wanting people to understand who you are and why you're great, like that's just never going to happen. And so, whether that means that, yeah, you're going to step in because even though you know that this is a real token ass situation, which that has been my, like, almost 10 out of 10 times, it's like, oh, they want someone who looks like me. Cool. I got it. But I'm happy to do it sometimes because there should be somebody who looks like me. And It is important to hear from somebody who looks like me to kind of crush any preconceived notions that they have about people who look like me. But then at the same time, Daniela, right? I'm sorry, did I get your name wrong? Sometimes it's like, no, thank you. No, thank you. It's not going to work. And that's up to you to decide. So I couldn't agree more with all of you guys. I mean, I think everyone in the world can have that feeling, even men, of feeling like I've never belonged here. And that's just a human experience and human condition. And like, the sooner that you can just get right with yourself and who you are and why you're meant to be doing what you're doing, the more successful you'll become.
Very well said. Thank you for that. So moving forward, I'd love to hear about your leadership styles. I mean, your resumes are extremely impressive, but I know that there probably was a process in learning and developing a style of leadership, whether it came through mentorship, whether it came from being the only and just having to figure it out yourself. But what was that that really kind of propelled you to figure out how you were going to lead and be the CEOs that you are today?
For me, it was doing it wrong. When things feel right and they feel good, and then there are moments where I'm like, wow, that really didn't feel right. Like I don't. And then sitting with those moments and being like, what happened there? What went wrong? I didn't listen to my gut. I thought somebody knew more than me. Like at the end of the day, I have to live with all the decisions that I make. And whenever I have one where I'm not sure what to do, just really sitting and imagining different trajectories and feeling them in my body, because I want to, I want to leave behind a legacy or just of treating people well over anything else. So like, yeah, it's hard to make decisions. And sometimes also knowing that there is no one right decision is really, really helpful. and you just got to make one and it feel okay for you, and you got to be able to sleep with it and live with it.
Mm-hmm. That's
I've
good.
worked with a coach since day one. It was to this day best money that I've spent, and I keep working with a coach, a business coach, since I started the entrepreneurial process. You know, every great leader has not one but multiple coaches because we're in constant evolution, and especially as founders, as entrepreneurs, we're evolving. I'm sure all of you are very different than what you were a month ago or a year ago, because we have, you know, so many constant learnings and challenges and things that we have to solve, because you start a business because you have a vision, but then you realize that you have to do the HR, the payroll management, hiring, all of it at the beginning, right? And there's so many hats that you need to wear, and nobody's perfect, and nobody's gonna be great at all of them. So as somebody else talked to me about a business coach, and I got one, and it's been fantastic. I'm very much a big proponent of open communication. I don't read minds. It's not a quality of mine. And so I don't know. I I do one-on-ones with my team, one a week, individually with team leads, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and that people keep being incentivized, especially over these 16 months, right? With COVID, we had to manage, I mean, internally, and I'm sure you guys do with your teams, right? Not only like growth of the business, managing investor, but also being empathetic with our teams, right? And understanding that everybody has a different situation and they were dealing with intense things internally. You also have to report again to investors, and you have to keep growing. So there were so many things on the plate, and the speaker before us was talking about, you know, mental balance, because when we are in a good place and we can lead better. And so that's something that I've applied since day one, like open communication. And then the coach guided me a lot through this transition to working remote, and again, it's something that I highly recommend for everybody.
Yes, I will add. I can't say enough about just investing in yourself and getting a coach. I waited for some reason. I always thought, oh, I'll get one when I'm more senior, and I finally got one when I got the director job at SoundCloud. And then I said, wait, why did I wait so long? And I know I called my sister, all my friends, and said, you need to get a communication coach, business coach, executive coach right now. It's never too early to do that. I think cannot recommend that more or enough. I think for myself, I guess throughout my career, for some reason, I've had a lot of first-time managers, or been kind of had first-time managers manage me, and it was a learning experience. And I think a lot of them, I understand they were figuring things out, but I did learn a lot about how I didn't want to lead from leaders that were not doing a great job. And I think the biggest thing that has kind of stuck with me is that, people don't want to be treated like a resource. It's important to put people first. The more you can empower people, empower teams, and really understand, what are the people you're working with passionate about, or what are they trying to achieve, and can you find that kind of alliance during your time together and grow together. I think that is the most important thing. And I know all of us have kind of mentioned just having really transparent communication. That is something I think is really core to being a good leader, because and a lot of that was developed from when I remember being an individual contributor earlier in my career and being frustrated that there wasn't good internal communication, or people, were treating me as a resource, or people were, I wasn't feeling empowered and really frustrated in my role. So I think that, of course, I have a lot of great mentors as well, but you can learn a lot from, good leaders or leaders whose styles didn't resonate with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me in building the company, one thing I kept asking myself is, who do I want to work for? What kind of company do I want to build? The beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur is you get to decide for yourself the culture that you're building, the team that you're building. And for me, having worked in the legal world, a lot of times in corporate spaces, I was just like, this is terrible. I never want to be in this position again. I don't want to put anyone in this position. So the beauty is you get to build the company that exists in the world that you want. And I'm a really, I'm a very light person. I don't take life or myself too seriously. So I infuse that playfulness all the time in everything that I do, just to keep the spirit and the energy light amongst, I mean, yeah, we're all working, but we're spending so much time together. We might as well have a good time and know how to laugh and, you know, like burst out into song and dance if we have to, like whatever. And I encourage all of that. You know, we really have a very specific culture and value kind of like rubric upon which we evaluate people, not just, you know, there's like obviously your skill set, can you do the role, but then will you fit in terms of the culture that we're building. And all of those values we're really proud of, and one of them is bringing your full self to work. It's like I don't want you to have a work self and a home self. It's like you're just you all the time. And if that means that, you know, you're the person who's like trolling everyone on Slack, cool. We welcome that. Have fun. And at the same time, one thing that for me has always been really, like, in order to keep myself very, very focused, is being, obviously you have to be really, really tough on problems, soft on people, and people-centric. However, I have to keep the business first. It's business first always. The decisions that I'm making, if this person, you know, I really want to nurture and grow people into the positions that they want. However, I still have to weigh that with, is this what's best for the business? Because, you know, we're emotional beings, like Daniela said, right? And we connect so much with these people. We work with them all day, and we love them, and we want to see them grow. And sometimes we make those decisions maybe to the detriment of the business because we're so people-centric and people-focused, which is great. And it's great when those two things can align. However, you have to know when they don't align anymore and it's not right for the business. And it's time to say, you know what, I love you. Like, you have gotten us so far and you've contributed so much, but I have to think of the business first. Even before I think of myself, before I eat, the business has to eat. So, you know, we're fundraising right now and we're down to the wire. I'm not taking a paycheck right now. And that's that. And it's business first always. So as much as I can help my team and help the people, I will, but I'm not going to do it to the detriment of the business ever.
I'm going to add that that's actually for the people too. Like, if there is no boat, none of us have jobs, right?
That's right.
So like sometimes, you know, it's about looking at the collective group first over individuals. And it is so hard. So hard.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. And I love, Melanie, your point. And I actually have that as a personal mantra of myself, that if I can't bring my whole self, then I'm going to stay at home. Like, I do not believe in needing to parcel pieces of my personality to fit in.
That's right.
Because when you're trying to fit in, then you're not really being true to who you are. So love that. We are almost down to the end of this panel. You guys are just feeding me gems. I'm like, dang, I wish I could take notes. So I know that there's some rising leaders and entrepreneurs who are watching and who would love to hear a final nugget, advice, real and raw, from each and every one of you before we wrap up. So I feel like let's do a round table. We'll start with Kristen, and please share.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Final nugget of advice. Honestly, just after listening to this conversation, it is trust your gut. You know, every time, you know, when I sit with myself and I reflect on, you know, mistakes I've made, it is when I didn't trust my gut. And I would say, no matter where you know, who you are, where you are in your career, like you know best, like trust your gut. It's gonna take you far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Daniela?
I said it before, focus on what you have and not on what you lack. And that goes for everything in the business, from your pitch deck to how you position yourself. Like, I remember when I started, the first time that we went fundraising, I thought that pitch decks had to be super structured and it was a specific set of data that we needed to show. But the reality is that if you look even at the S1s of companies that have gone public, even very similar companies narrate a very different story. So focus on what's working for your business, and that's what you put on your deck, and what's that you put on your narrative, and that's what you do with everything. The fact that somebody else with a similar business perhaps has amazing ARR, but for you, you're having user growth. You don't have to talk about the ARR. Talk about the user growth. Talk about whatever it is that works for you and build that story around. And that has worked very nicely for me in multiple aspects of business and personally.
Thank you. Melanie?
I would say get ready for people to not like you. The more successful you become, the higher you climb. Not everyone's going to like that. And I'm a people pleaser. I always have been. And so that got knocked right out me. It was like, not everyone's going to love you. Not everyone's going to like you. And you know what? That's how you know you're on the right track. Because the more you grow and the more amazing things that you do, people who do concentrate on lack and see scarcity in what they don't have are going to look at you and they're going to feel a type of way. And you have to get right with that. You have to get used to that, because if you're going to pander to different people who are making you feel a type of way, you're wasting your time and your energy. It's only going to keep you stagnant or even going in reverse. You got to keep looking forward, know and expect that there are going to be people around who are just not going to like you for it. And that's okay. Not everyone has to like you. It's cool. And the people who love you and will rock with you will rock with you. And that's your tribe. And the people who don't, peace out, deuces, like, not for you. That's okay. And that took me a long time to learn, because like I said, I'm somebody who was a big hardcore people pleaser, and I got that knocked right out.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So real. All right, final words, Alexandra?
Yeah, I think that this kind of touches on what other people said too, which is like, alignment is the assignment. Like, know yourself, trust, it's like your decisions, right? So if somebody is like, hey, I feel like you wronged me, like, I too often wanted to go and be like, no, I didn't, here's why, and explain it, because I want them to still like me. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, I don't have time to make sure you like me. Like, I thought about it, I sat with it. No, I you know what, that decision felt right for me. I'm going to move on. Or that decision, oh, I have new information and now I see an error of my ways. I'm going to apologize and I'm going to move on. But like, you got to be in alignment with who you are and feel good. Things have to feel good. You got to trust your gut. You need to like shape your narrative the way you want it to be, shaped. And yeah, I'll leave also with controversial opinion. Don't bring your whole self to work. DM me about it.
I will DM you on that. What a cliffhanger to leave us with. Well, this was such a powerful, intentional, and life-giving conversation. On behalf of the founders of Rise and the team, just want to thank you all again for coming on and being a part of this conversation. And for anyone who's watching, hopefully you no longer feel like you are the only, and you are supported and you're in this, and stay true to yourself. So thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.